just a sprinkling for the May Queen. Yes, there are two paths you can go by, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on. And it makes me wonder, your head is humming and it won't go. In case you don't know, the piper's calling you to join him. Dear lady, can you hear the wind blow? And did you know your stairway?
These are the Range Rover Classic, and they are in the yearly range model from 1969 to 1995. The Range Rover Classic is a 4x4 mid-size sports utility vehicle series produced from 1969 to 1996. Initially by the Rover, later Land Rover division of British Leyland, and latterly by the Rover Group. The first generation of vehicles produced under the Range Rover name. It was built as a two-door model for its first 11 years, until a four-door model became available in 1981. The two-door version remained available until 1994, the year when the second generation was launched. At that time, Land Rover rebranded the original Range Rover under the newly coined term Range Rover Classic to distinguish it from its P38A successor, when the two were briefly built alongside and applied the same retrospectively to all first-generation Range Rovers. Although formerly superseded by the second-generation Range Rover starting in 1994, both the successor and the more affordable first and second series of the Land Rover Discovery were heavily based on their original Range Rover's chassis, drivetrain and body structure, which in essence lived on until the third-generation Discovery arrived and its mechanical bloodline ended in 2004. Now let's talk about the history. Rover's Land Rover Series 1, launched in 1948, had been designed to be cheap, simple to manufacture, and suitable for hard work in rural terrain with minimal concessions towards comfort. Rover shortly realized that a market exists for an off-road capable vehicle with more amenities. In 1949, the Land Rover estate car was released with a coach-built wood-frame body by Tickford. However, the high price of adding such car-like features as 7 seats, floor carpets, a heater, and a one-piece windscreen resulted in fewer than 700 being sold before being dropped in 1951. In 1954, Land Rover launched a second iteration estate car, this time aimed at the commercial user who needed an off-road vehicle for carrying passengers without car-like comforts. Based on the commercial panel van variant Land Rover, it had seats fitted to the load space and windows cut into the slides. While available with features such as interior lights, heater, door and floor trims, and upgraded seats, the estate car retained the base vehicle's tough and capable suspension, as well as its mediocre road performance. By the late 1950s, Rover had become convinced a market for a more comfortable 4x4 existed in areas such as Africa and Australia, where ordinary motorists faced long journeys on unmade roads that called for four-wheel drive and tough suspensions. In 1958, the first of the Road Rover development cars was built, combining the Land Rover's tenacity with the comfort of a Rover saloon car. Dubbed the Road Rover, it featured a Land Rover chassis and running gear cloth in a functional estate car-like body. It never made it into production. By the 1960s, Rover was becoming aware of the embryonic development of the sport utility vehicle in North America. Proto-SUVs such as the International Harvester Scout in 1961 and the Ford Bronco from 1996 began the schools of 4x4s towards speeds and comforts while retaining more than the adequate off-road ability for most private users. The Jeep Wagoneer proved the concept further in the direction of Rover has several times attempted, but with more power. To provide Rover a nudge up to step up, the president of the company's USA operations shipped a Land Rover Series 2 88 to Britain's fitted with an advanced small block all-aluminum Buick V8 engine. Rover acknowledged the emerging recreational off-market in 1967 under Charles Spencer King and began the 100-inch station wagon, programmed to develop a radical competitor. Rover brought a Bronco, which featured the sort of long-travel coiled suspension necessary for the required blend of luxury car and comfort and Land Rover's proven off-road ability. King is said to have been convinced of coil springs while driving a Rover P6 across rough scrubland on part of the Solihull factory site that was being redeveloped. He was also convinced that a permanent four-wheel drive transmission was needed both to provide an adequate handling and reliability to absorb the power for the vehicles to be competitive. The cost of developing a totally new transmission was spread between a 100-inch SW project and one working on what would become the Land Rover 101 forward control. Powerful, light, and sturdy, the Buick alloy V8 off-road modifications such as the carburetor that remained fuel supplied at extreme angles and provisions for cranking the engine with a starting handle in emergencies. The final bodywork featured a design largely done by the engineering team rather than David Bach's styling division. Introduced to the public in June 1970, the new Range Rover was launched as a car for all reasons, boasting a top speed of around 100 miles per hour, a towing capacity of 3.5 tons, spacious accommodation for 5 occupants, hydraulic disc brakes on all wheels, and a groundbreaking full-speed, dual-range, permanent four-wheel drive system. To much critical acclaim, it appeared that Rover has succeeded in their goals of making a car equally capable both on and off-road, arguably better in both environments than any other four-wheel drive vehicle of its era, with a top speed of 95 miles per hour and an acceleration from a standstill to 60 miles per hour in less than 15 seconds. Performance was slated as being better than many family saloon cars of its era, and off-road performance was good, owing to its long suspension travel and high ground performance. The 1995 Classic Range Rovers would reduce to 0 to 60 miles per hour, time around 11 seconds, and increase the top speed to approximately 110 miles per hour. Notable off-road tests were winning the four-wheel drive class in the first Paris-Dakar Rally in 1979 and 1981, and being two of the first vehicles, along with Land Rover Series 2A, to traverse both American continents north to south through the Darien Gap from 1971 to 1972. Like other Land Rover vehicles, most of the Range Rover's bodywork skin is constructed from lightweight aluminium, except for the two-section rear tailgates and the bonnet on all but the earliest models. Apart from minor cosmetic changes, the body design changed very little in its first decade. However, while utility Land Rovers had body panels rolled from a single sheet of aluminium, the Range Rover used aluminium panels hung on a steel safety frame. a method pioneered with great success on the Rover P6 saloon. This allowed the bodywork of the Range Rover to carry much greater structural strength with the steel frame while retaining the corrosion-resistant and easily repaired aluminum outer panels. While the steel frame was designed by the engineering team, it was expected that the Rover stylist David Bosch would provide a design for the outer panels for use on the production vehicles. For the prototypes, the engineers designed their own functional body panels simply to protect the occupants and to allow the vehicles to be driven legally on the road. However, the clean, square-cut, and functional design of the prototype was deemed so good that Bosch only altered the detailing, such as providing a different front grille and a hand-lap design. The Range Rover also marked the first appearance of Bosch trademark symmetric dashboard, where a common molding was used for the fascia superstructure on both RHD and LHD version, onto which Port-style instrument binnacle was simply mounted on the appropriate side. Bosch would use this concept again on both the Rover SD1 and the Austin Metro in later years. The original fascia would later be nicknamed the Airfix dashboard by the Range Rover enthusiasts, owing to its hard, low-quality plastics which, as the vehicle moved upmarket over the years, betrayed its humble beginning as a utility vehicle. It remained with the Range Rover up until the very last years of production, when it was replaced by the soft dash. Early vehicles may be distinguished by the rear seat pillars being absent of a vinyl covering, which was introduced a little later in the 1970s. One of the first significant changes came into 1981 with the introduction of a four-door body. Until then, Range Rovers only had two doors, making success to the rear seats, especially ingress, rather awkward. These doors were also very large and heavy. Egress was somehow alleviated by the special design feature of having two inside door opening latches in the front of the doors for the driver and front passenger, and the second set of equally large and prominently styled door opener latches on the inside of the rear of the doors behind the front seats, providing rear seat occupants full autonomy to lead the vehicle. They could easily fold the seats in front of them forward and open the door from their rear seat location in a somewhat convenient manner. Several companies offered conversions to four-door Range Rovers in the late 1970s. One of these companies' conversion by Monteverdi was approved by Land Rover to retain warranty after it was presented at the 1980 Geneva Salon. 2 years earlier, British Leyland had restructured and promoted Land Rover into its own BL subsidiary, and now a more independent company used the Monteverdi as a basis for producing its own four-door model in July 1981. The four-door version was well received by the public. Its popularity was such that the two-door was discontinued in the United Kingdom in 1984, although the two-door continued to be produced through January 1994, mainly for the French market. The first major push-up market was in 1984, which saw the availability of leather trim, unhinged rear number plate, and automatic transmission. This was followed by the 1985 model year, which saw the instrument pod replaced by a more modern one adapted from the Austin Maestro and new door cards, using Austin Metro door handles with walnut inlays. The front end of the Range Rover was revamped in 1986. This brought a more pedestrian-friendly plastic grille with horizontal slats, and optional front valence with two fog lights. The seat base was lowered and door handles were redesigned, making it more difficult for rear passengers but greatly improving the comfort for taller people in the front. The dashboard switchgear was updated again, now featuring the steering column stocks from the Austin Montego and other miscellaneous items from the Austin Rover car range. Other changes include the windows, tailgate, and bonnet, but none of those affected the general design. Bonnet and door hinges gradually evolved out of sight, and the fuel filler cap was hidden behind a hinged flap. The last major change to the interior took place in 1984, when the Range Rover was redesigned Classic upon the arrival of the replacement P38i version. The car gained a soft feel safety dashboard derived from that used in the facelifted Series 1 Discovery. With new switches, These were lifted from the Rover 800 and instruments. These end-of-the-line models are popularly called soft-dash models by the motor trade and by enthusiasts to distinguish them from other members of the Range Rover Classic series. The Range Rover broke from the Land Rovers of its time by using coil springs instead of the then common leaf springs. Because of its hefty weight, it also had disc brakes on all four wheels. Originally, it had no power steering, though this was added a few years after its introduction. One problem with the Range Rover chassis was that it suffered considerably from body roll. Because of this, the suspension was lowered by 22 millimeters in 1980 and later gained anti-roll bars. Air suspension was introduced in late 1992 for high-end 1993 models. Most Range Rovers had a 100-inch wheelbase. However, 1992 saw the introduction of a more luxurious model, branded the LSE in the United Kingdom and the County LWB in the United States, providing expensive rear passenger legroom opposite from the 100-inch wheelbase models. These had a 100-inch wheelbase, air suspension, and a 4.2-liter engines. The 100-inch Range Rover chassis became the basis for the Land Rover Discovery, introduced in 1989. Originally, the Range Rover was fitted with a detuned 135 horsepower version of the Buick-derived Rover V8 engine. The 3528cc engine was increased to a displacement of a 3947cc for the 1989 model year and a 4197cc in 1992. Petrol-fueled Range Rovers were retrofitted with carburetors until 1986, when they were replaced by the Lucas electronic fuel injection, improving both performance and fuel economy. The Lucas injection system continued to evolve over the next several years, culminating in the 1990 to 1995 Lucas 14CUX. Some export markets retained carburetors, with the original Senate Stromberg manufactured units being replaced by Skinner's Union SU manufactured items. From 1979 onwards, Land Rover collaborated with Perkins on Project Iceberg, an effort to deliver a diesel version of the Range Rover's 3.5-liter V8 engine. Both naturally aspirated and turbocharged versions were built, but the all-alloy engine blocks failed under the much greater pressures involved in diesel operations. The project was, therefore, abandoned. The effort to strengthen the Rover V8 for diesel operation was not, however, completely wasted. The 4.2-liter petrol variant of the engine used crankshift casting developed in the Iceberg projects. Because of the Iceberg failure, it was not until 1986 that Land Rover was getting diesel engines from the factory. The more efficient 2393cc inline-4 VM diesel from Italy was made available as an option for the heavily taxed European market as the Turbo D model, and were increased to 2499cc in 1989. The VM engines were highly advanced and refined diesel engines for their time, but were received poorly by the UK press due to their inconsistent torque delivery compared to the V8 models. To counter these criticisms, Land Rover used the Turbo D Range Rover to set several speed and endurance records for diesel vehicles during 1987, including a continuous run over 24 hours at over 100 miles per hour. The VM were replaced by Land Rover's own 200cc DI turbocharged diesel engines in 1992 and 300cc DI at the end of 1994. Now, let's listen to how they sound. Range Rover used used permanent four-wheel drive rather than the switchable rear-wheel four-wheel drive on Land Rover series vehicles, and had a lever for switching ratios on the transfer box for off-road use. Originally, the only gearbox available was a 4-speed manual unit until Ferry Overdrive became an option after 1977. A 3-speed Chrysler Torque Flight automatic gearbox became an option in October 1982, after years of demand from buyers. This was an upgrade to a 4-speed ZF box in 1985, coupled to LT230 transfer box. The other major transmission upgrade in the Range Rover's lifetime was the switch from the LT95 combined 4-speed manual gearbox and transfer box to the LT77 5-speed gearbox and separate LT230 transfer box in 1983. The LT230 was later used on both Defender and Discovery models, but was replaced on the Range Rover by a Borg-Warner chain-driven transfer box incorporating an automatic vicious coupling limited slip differential. Earlier transmissions had a manual differential lock operated by the vacuum servo on the L1095 and mechanically on the LT230. The LT77 had two major design changes. First, an upgrade to larger bearings for delay shift and new ratios around 1988, then a newly designed synchro hub for third and fourth gear and doubled synchros for first and second. This is also known as the suffix H gearbox or LT77s. The Range Rover Classic was a popular platform for conversion vehicles built by independent coach builders. Some examples of common modifications include ambulances, 6x4s, convertibles, police vehicles, limos, and open-top hunting cars. Though some coach builders utilize Range Rovers simply for the chassis and drivetrain while grafting new fabricated bodies on top, most of them retain the familiar Range Rover styling elements while upgrading the engine, transmission, suspension, or interior design. The coach builders include Car Bodies, Carmichael, FLM, Panel Craft, Glenfirm, Rapport, and Wood and Pickett. Although the Range Rover was designed with the US market in mind and was planned to be launched in the USA in the middle of 1971 with a base price of $5,300, it didn't come to fruition due to the lack of finance, production capacity, and the new US safety and environmental regulations. While the Land Rover Series 3 was still imported into the US, a decline in sales and new smog regulations caused British Leyland to withdraw from the US market in 1974. In the early 1980s, the Range Rover was sold in the US as a gray market vehicle by 4 Los Angeles area-based dealers, and starting in 1994, also by Aston Martin's American division based in Greenwich, Connecticut. With fuel injection replacing the carburetors, the Range Rover became compliant with new US emissions regulations. To prepare for US launch, Range Rover of North America was established in Lanham, Maryland in late 1985, with plans to import Range Rovers through ports of Baltimore and Long Beach, California, beginning in March 1987. To be sold nationwide through a network of 36 dealers, expanding to 65 by 1988. The Range Rover was officially introduced to the US market in the 1987 LA Auto Show in January and Chicago Auto Show on 7th of February. The Range Rover was officially launched in the US market on 16th March 1987, and the first car was sold on the same day. In 1988, Range Rover won Playboy's Best 4x4 award. In 1989, to establish its reputation, 8 special edition Range Rovers were prepared for the Great Divide Expedition, a 12-day, 1,128-mile trek in the Rocky Mountains in the state of Colorado. From 21st of August to 2nd of September 1989, partway through the event, one of these special edition Range Rovers was rolled multiple times at high speed by automotive journalist J. Land. On 1st of August 1992, the Range Rover of North America shifted to Land Rover North America Incorporated. Now with my life. This is about my uncle since he came to the USA in 1990. In 1997, he bought his first car, which is one of these Range Rover Classics. It was a 1990 Range Rover Classic in gray with 4 doors, and it had a 4-speed automatic transmission. This car he chose was the greatest classic beast in its own, and with reinforced steel appearance. But the main problem he had with it was the lowest MPG it ran with. This exposes Range Rover from luxury classical times through sporty, modern luxury today, often have excessive gas usage burn quickly. With his car in 4-speed auto, if I was him back then, I would have this car in 5-speed manual transmission, because having a standard manual indeed helps gain higher MPGs compared to automatic transmissions. And another thing I like was his car was one of the first to not have the exposed door hinges in the front. Previously in 1989 and earlier years since 1970, these door hinges are obviously resourceful and appreciative if anyone living in rural areas of America, Africa, or Australia lives far away from their Land Rover maintenance facility. These exposed hinges help save money, and they are easier to fix the doors of these cars. This year, when looking at some pictures and videos of these cars, I didn't like these at first because they looked unstable as they get older. But as days pass, thinking about these cars, they are proven to be Range Rover's first well-sold luxury SUV of British loyalty. It follows with 1970 models were the first to be strictly 4x4, 1981 starts these cars in 4 doors, 1989 starts anti-lock braking, 1992 starts electronic traction control and auto air suspension. So far, my favorite Range Rover Classics were the 1987 to 1995 models with 4 doors. This year of 2020, Range Rover production turned 50 years old, and we honored the 1970 Range Rovers that were the first to exceed our 4x4 luxury productions as 50-year-old SUV classics in a ever so cautious long-lasting run. Range Rover, you are the company of your British links to get the biggest awards on your effort to make Range Rover an excellent SUV besides the jeopardized reliability y'all served. So the rate, 9.1 out of 10 for these cars. So thank you guys for watching, like, comment, share, subscribe, and long live your timing Range Rovers.
Whoa, for the longest time. Whoa, for the longest. If you said goodbye to me tonight, there would still be music left to write. What else could I do? I'm so inspired by you
Oh God.